Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime with YDRC. Today, we're going to be continuing Klawde the Space Dog Cometh. Last time we left off at the beginning of chapter 45, so that's where we're going to start off for today. Let's get started. I was relieved to see that Cedar and Steve were the first to arrive. Too bad Newt and Scorpion were right behind them. I couldn't believe it. They were crashing my birthday party. "Hello, children," Aji said, beaming at them. "I am so glad you could come." She held out a plate of pakoras and samosas. "Please, help yourself." Scorpion made a face but took one, and so did Newt. Pretty soon, more people showed up, including Max, Brody, and Sarah from math. Lindy came in with Chad, who had a big bow attached to his harness. Aji told everyone to leave their presents on the coffee table and then come into the dining room. "I hope you brought your appetites," she said. She'd finished making the roti, and the food lay steaming on the table. Great big bowls of rice, dal, sambar, and all kinds of curries and side dishes. I held my breath. What would everyone say? Steve leaned over the buffet table like he was about to dive into a pool. "This looks awesome," he said. Steve, of course, would eat anything. It was the other kids I was worried about. I was too nervous to talk to any of them, so I just helped myself to a bowl of sambar. They all started to fill up their plates, but none of them looked too excited about it. When I noticed that Aji had garnished the pakora platter with the crazy spicy little green chilies that I loved, I picked one up and nibbled on the end. Then I noticed Scorpion about to pop an entire one into his mouth. "I don't think you want to do that," I said. "Those peppers are deadly." "This little thing," Scorpion sneered. "If you can eat it, I can eat it. I once drank a whole glass of sriracha." "Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you." Scorpion popped the pepper into his mouth and bit it off at the stem. Instantly, his face turned pink, then red, then something close to purple. He ran into the kitchen, stuck his mouth under the faucet, and began guzzling water, drenching his whole head in the process. Aji hurried over and patted him on the back. There, you must have raita to cool the burn. Yogurt works much better than water, and have some roti." I went upstairs to get him a towel. By the time I got back, Scorpion was happily munching on roti and raita, and everyone else had found something they liked too. Newt, who had completely filled her plate, lifted up a forkful of bisi bele bath, spicy lentils and rice, and stared at it. "Do you think it's weird?" I asked her. "Weird," she said. "My grandma serves rice gruel with oysters and fermented fish sauce for breakfast. This," she took a giant bite. "This is regular." Brody laughed. "My grandma makes baked turnips and tofu. It's so gross." "My grandma just microwaves frozen chicken casseroles," Steve said. Aji grinned at me like I told you this would work. I couldn't believe it. Everyone was smiling and laughing, and eating, but I barely had any time to enjoy it, because I suddenly heard hissing and growling coming from the direction of the garage. "What is that sound?" Steve said with his mouth full of pakora. "It sounds like a Tasmanian devil fighting a rabid dingo," Cedar said. "You guys stay here," I said. "I'll take care of it." And I broke into a run. Chapter 46. "Your little canine mind trick didn't work," I gloated. "So much for man's best friend. Now you heard the ogre. Go home." Barks didn't budge. "Actually," he said, "Raj never gave me that command. So here we are, still." He sat down and glared at me. My whiskers trembled in rage. I jumped to the hood of the human's go-kart, from which I could stare down into Barks's mud-brown eyes. Our noses practically touched. You and your absurd canine technicalities, I thundered. Just leave! Go home! Don't you get it? I will never face justice. You failed. You are a bad dog. A bad dog! A low growl started in Barks's throat, and the fur along his spine began to rise up. Don't you growl at me, I said, slashing him across his hideous snout. Barks bared every single one of his deadly teeth. I believe this is what the ancients were referring to when they said, there comes a moment in every warrior's life when he must retract his claws and rot. Chapter 47. I'd only made it halfway across the kitchen when the door to the garage banged open. I saw a blur of blue-grays zoom by me, Klawde, followed by a golden streak of Barks. Wuffles, definitely not a blur, brought up the rear, barking his head off. Stop it, you guys! I shouted. I should have known that wouldn't work. Klawde raced into the dining room, jumped onto the buffet table, and then sprinted up and down the length of it, leaping over bowls of curry. Barks ran around the table in circles, his big jaws snapping at Claude's back paws. Then Barks banged into Brody, who lost his balance and fell, taking his plate of food down with him. As he went, his elbow shot up and sent Max's plate flying into Newt's face. Scorpion started to laugh, but then Claude's back feet kicked his plate right into his pants. Scorpion's face got all red again. I was still yelling, stop, stop, and still none of them were listening. And then Barks grabbed the corner of the tablecloth and started tugging, pulling Klawde and all the platters of food toward him. Everyone tried to grab the bowls before they went over the edge, but there were too many of them. Thinking quickly, Cedar tossed a huge roadie at Barks, who let go of the tablecloth and caught it like a frisbee. But that wasn't the end of the chaos. Klawde sprang down to the floor, and then all the animals were racing around the room again. Lindy swooped up Chad, but he scrambled out of her arms and leaped up to a window ledge. Wait, was that my Octo attached to his harness? Before I could get a closer look, Klawde shot through my legs. I tried to grab his tail but missed. Then I went to tackle Barks, but he dodged me and barreled into Sarah, who fell back against the wall. Ajit stuck her fingers in her mouth and let loose a crazy loud whistle. Then she yelled, "Who wants a treat?" Klawde and Barks stopped in their tracks and looked up at her. She was holding up 2 big cubes of cheese. "Paneer!" they both said at once. As the suddenly calm animals began to eat, Cedar said, "That was a really strange meow, even for Klawde." And it almost sounded like the dog was talking. "I think that pepper has gone to your head," I said. Steve looked particularly concerned about what was going on. "Hey," he said, "can I get some of that paneer?" Chapter 48. It had been far too long since I had witnessed such a satisfying mayhem. The room looked like the scene of a deadly battle. Instead of blood pooling upon the ground, however, there was curry. The humans encouraged the canines and me to devour it, as they superstitiously believe that food becomes spoiled the instant it touches the ground. Next came the strangest human behavior I had yet witnessed. The Ancient One brought out a cake with the name and age of my ogre upon it. She then set it on fire. Just as I began to fear for his life, the other ogres gathered around him to chant an ear-splitting ode to his birth. At the end of this song, my human extinguished the flames by blowing air on them. In an apparent reward for this accomplishment, he was presented with useless objects wrapped in colorful paper. This arcane ritual completed, the other young ogres left, with the exception of the one belonging to Flabby. I could wait no longer, however. It was time to settle the dog problem once and for all. So I called Floofy and commanded him to depart Litterbox in the escape pod immediately. So Barks will let down the force field? He asked. Not yet, but he will. After summoning my ogre and my enemy back to the garage, I calmly requested that the former send the latter home in shame. Now, or you will feel the pain of my wrath. When the boy ogre did not respond, I tried a different tactic. I widened my eyes, I cocked my head, I tried to look pleading and cute. Is something wrong with your face, Claude? Quit that. It looks weird, he said. Anyway, I'm not going to send Barks away if he doesn't want to go. Just like I wasn't going to send you off to some dog prison. Who said anything about prison? Barks said, a look of horror upon his face. We canines outlawed kennels thousands of years ago. Wait, so if you're not sending Klawde to prison, my ogre asked, then what is his punishment? The only thing that makes any sense, Barks said stiffly. By this, I assumed he meant clipping my whiskers and stringing me up by my claws, as any reasonable being would. Claude has to make amends, Barks continued in a grave manner. He must say he's sorry. What? I said. That's it? My ogre yelped. Well, he never has said it, Barks said indigently, and one should apologize after blowing up a planet. The boy ogre wagged a finger at me. Yes, one definitely should, he said. I took a deep breath in. If it is what it must be, I said in my grimmest voice, I will bear the awful indignity. Oh, how hard it was to stifle my purr of glee. Awful indignity? Ha! I could hardly believe my luck. What goody-goody morons these dogs were. Apologize? Nothing was easier. As even the dullest kitten knows, good things come to those who lie. Alrighty then, Barks said. I guess we can take off for the Dog Star Cluster. But wait, the boy ogre said. Why does Claude have to go across the universe? Can't he apologize to you right here? Right now? It was a shrewd observation by my ogre. How unexpected. Due to the master clause, Barks had no choice but to do as the human requested. Using his collar, he summoned the image of the canine called Muffy and explained the situation. She promptly called for an emergency meeting for their security council, and one by one, an entire pack of space dogs appeared. Oh, this was going to be fun. Chapter 49. Wow, Jogging holograms. It was like some sci-fi movie, except it was real, and it was happening inside my garage. There were a million questions I wanted to ask the dog aliens, but they weren't paying any attention to me. They listened silently while the little brown and white pooch read an account of Claude's crime. It looked to me that like Claude was loving every minute of it, but none of them seemed to notice. I didn't think there was any way he'd apologize, but I was wrong. Sort of. Comrade Muffy, esteemed representatives of Dog Star Cluster, Claude said when it was his turn to speak. Before you stands that rarest of creatures, a remorseful feline. Regret fills me from the end of my tail to the tips of my whiskers. If I could turn back time and not blow Rumps to smithereens, I would do so. It was a majestic little speck of a planet, and it did not deserve its fate. Only in my careless youth could I have committed such a reckless act. He was laying it on pretty thick. I never thought he'd be this apologetic, Barks whispered to me. He is so sincere. It was funny how Barks could sniff out my 5th grade crush on Lunabelle Lipman, but not Claude's totally obvious sarcasm. The hologram dog seemed to be buying it too. The pleasure of watching Rumps explode into trillions of subatomic particles is nothing compared to the sorrow I feel now, knowing that I have caused pain to you, you innocent, friendly, aromatic dogs, Claude said. At that moment, a blinking red light caught my eye, and I saw Chad creeping closer to Claude. That was definitely my octo on his harness, and it was recording. I hope that someday you will find it in your great and generous doggy hearts to forgive me, lowly feline that I am, Claude said. And then he did something I could not believe. Claude rolled over on his back and showed them his belly. Well, that's good enough for me, Bark said. Comrade Muffy? Muffy nodded. I declare that this feline is truly sorry and has served his punishment, she announced. But as always, the verdict of the pack must be unanimous. What say my fellow alpha dogs? Woo, woo, woo! The dogs all went, except one. Comrade Fido, Muffy said, are you not satisfied? The old bulldog grunted. I missed howling at Rumps as it rose at night, she said. There is no bringing the planet back, Bark said, and clearly Claude is sorry. Just look at him. Claude had that totally fake pleading look on his face again. Oh, fine, Fido said, rolling her eyes. Woo, woo, woo. Whiz cuz of Litterbox, Comrade Muffy said. I now declare your punishment served. With that, the hologram flickered and the space dogs disappeared. And that's when I heard Raji yelling for me. Raj, I know you love your animals, she called, but I need some help with this mess. Raj, hey Raj, Bark said. I'll help you retrieve dishes from the dining room, because I'm a golden retriever, get it? Yeah, I said, rolling my eyes. Good one. Chapter 50. I blocked the curve from falling the boy human. I fulfilled my end of the bargain, I said. Now you must fulfill yours. He cocked his giant yellow head in confusion. Oh, right, he said, finally getting it. The force field. Barks opened the app on his collar and entered the password. Smile face, peace _ love _ happiness. Smile face. Such gibberish. No wonder I couldn't crack it. The moment the 88 canine left, I too exited the garage and made my way into the yard to await Floofy's arrival. I waited and waited, and waited still more. Blast it! Where was he? Entire Earth minutes had passed. I was about to call my minion to berate him when I caught sight of the ship. The rescue module descended, the portal opened, and Floofy poked his head out. Greetings, O all-conquering Lord. Where have you been? I demanded. Sorry, Floofy said, exploding supernova in the Quotient quadrant. And, oh wow, is that who I think it is? From behind me came a voice. Meow? Flabby, Floofy cried, jumping down from the module as I was leaping atop it. What are you doing, fool? I said. We have to go. Ignoring me, the imbecile trotted over to Flabby, the even greater imbecile. It's my old Earth pal, Floofy cried. How have you been, buddy? Looks like you've kept your appetite up. Meow, meow. Yeah, you don't have to tell me he can be tough to work for, Floofy muttered. And look, you still have the camera on. And you've been recording. The cats back at home have been dying for more of your videos. Leave it, I commanded. Are you sure? Now, I cried. There is only one thing we must do. Return to litter box. Floofy hung his head and slunk back into the ship, and I took one last look at the place that had been my home lo these many months. Peace out, ogres. Glory would soon be mine. Chapter 51. Aji and Lindy were at the sink washing dishes when I came into the kitchen. Great news, Lindy said as I grabbed a broom. Your grandma told me I can adopt Woofles. Aji smiled. What I actually said was that after we finish cleaning up, we can go talk to her parents. She turned to Lindy, and if they say it's okay, we can fill out the Forever Doggy adoption application. That's awesome, I said. I meant it too. I just hoped Lindy's parents had a high tolerance for dog farts. As I swept, Barks trotted into the kitchen and started helping me clean the floor with his tongue. When the dishes were done, Aji went to take Lindy across the street. There is leftover paneer in the fridge for the animals if they're hungry, she said as she put on her shoes. Oh, Chad might like that too. Where is he? Lindy said. She looked around, then shrugged. Oh, he must be playing with your kitty. I'll come get him later. As the front door slammed shut, Bark said, About that paneer. I had just pulled a bowl of it out of the fridge when I noticed colored lights flashing along the kitchen wall. Was there a cop car outside? An ambulance? I went over to the window and looked out. No freaking way. There was a small, egg-shaped spaceship hovering right above my backyard. It was covered in thousands of tiny blinking lights, and it spun slowly, around and around. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. Barks, I gasped. Is that yours? That heap of junk? He said. Nope. That looks like it's... Klawde! I hollered. I ran for the back door, but the lock was sticky, and it took me forever to get it open. By the time I burst into the yard, calling for my cat, the hatch to the spaceship had closed, and the whole thing was spinning faster. It floated a little higher, and then suddenly it was gone. I looked all around. I saw a tail peeking out from behind the elm tree. Klawde, is that you? Meow? It was Chad. He waddled over to me. Meow? He was the only cat in the yard. I sank down into the damp grass. I couldn't believe it. Klawde was actually gone. Barks came and sat beside me. Wow, Raj, he sighed. That's a real bummer. He paused, panting. Maybe we should play a game of fetch what we're talking about. You know, taking your mind off things? I didn't answer. Klawde had gone back to litter box, and he'd done it. Could it be true? Without even saying goodbye. You let down the force field, I said. Barks slowly nodded. I did, and now I feel like I let you down too. It's not your fault, I said. After a minute, Barks gently put his paw on my leg. Would rubbing my tummy make you feel any better? He lay down and I put my hand in the soft golden fur of his belly. And it did make me feel a tiny bit better. Ooh, yeah, that's the spot, Barks said. Look, my leg is twitching. See that? I'm not even doing it on purpose. I stopped. I can't believe he just left like that, I said. Maybe he'll come back. You said he always does, Barks said. And maybe I will too. Wait, what? You have to leave now too? My mission is over, and I have to go home. The job of being a peacekeeping Space Ranger dog never ends, Barks said solemnly. But Earth looks like a lovely place to retire. Maybe I'll come back to live out my golden years. Get it? Because I'm a golden retriever. Barks wagged his tail. Klawde was right about one thing. Barks really did have a terrible sense of humor. Chapter 52. What fanfare would greet me in the streets of Litterbox? Parades, military drills, feasting, speeches, and the ritual humiliation of the deposed Calico. Perhaps I myself would be the one to shave her tail. Purr. The crowds have amassed at the Imperial Palace, Floofy said, scanning the ship's monitor. If all is going according to schedule, the Loyalists should be preparing the Scepter of Power for its transfer to you, O great and omnipotent leader. My whiskers stiffened with pride. I hereby establish a new and magnificent intergalactic holiday, I declared, the triumphal day of homecoming and vengeance. My whiskers stiffened with pride. I hereby establish a new and magnificent intergalactic holiday, I declared, the triumphal day of homecoming and vengeance, to celebrate the day when I, WizCuz, master of 3 species, return to Litterbox. Soon I will be back where I belong, seated upon the most high throne, ruling my subjects with an iron paw. As we entered the atmosphere of Litterbox and floated down to its surface, I spied the swirling masses gathered outside the Imperial Palace. There were cats of every shape, size, and color, all coming together to bow down before me. Even from that height, I could hear the chanting of the crowd. They were calling for blood. A battle was imminent. At any moment now, they would be ready to tear that treacherous calico limb from Spotted Limb. Floofy's communicator rang. Wait, what? He said as the ship entered landing mode. Are you sure the video, it was a what? You're positive? Okay. Yeah, goodbye. My minion looked like he had eaten his own tail. What is it, fool? I yelled. Is there some delay in the re-coronation ceremony? Did they fail to get the gallows erected in time? Are there not yet enough flowers to lay at my paws as I proceed to the throne? Well, Floofy said as the ship touched the ground. Do you see that angry mob rushing toward us? Yes, I said. It warms my bloodthirsty heart. It's not the Calico's head they want. It's, Floofy paused. Yours. What? I thundered. Why? Just then, the escape pod started to rock. We were being swarmed by the infuriated mob. Well, it might be because of that last video. My eyes narrowed to slits. What last video? Well, when I saw Flabby there in the yard, I noticed he still had the camera on, and you know how popular your films have been. Flabby filmed a video today? I demanded. And you sent it? I didn't know it showed you rolling over and begging the dogs for forgiveness, he said. Did you really mean that? Of course not, you imbecile, I roared. There would not be time enough to skin my worthless lackey alive later. Right now, Floofy had to pilot us out of there. The mob was clawing at the hatch, trying to pry it open. What are you waiting for? I screamed. Engage the lift thrusters. I did, but there are too many cats on top of the ship, Floofy said. The thrusters don't have enough power. I searched my memory for what brilliant piece of advice the ancients had for just such a situation. Unfortunately, there wasn't any. Chapter 53. I was throwing the ball one last time for barks when my phone rang. I dug it out of my pocket. The screen read, Supremest All-Powerful Warlord. The ball fell from my hands as I scrambled to answer it. Klawde? Is that really you? I said. Are you calling me from outer space? Indeed, it is I, Ogre. I am calling you from beside the highest spire atop the Imperial Palace. The connection was terrible, but I could hear him. My cat, from across the universe. Is that where they crown you ultimate eternal warlord or whatever? I asked. Unfortunately, no. Klawde shouted above the roar of what sounded like a million cats. It is where they impale those whom the mob has turned against. What do you mean? He quickly told me how Flabby Tabby, Chad, had filmed his apology to the dogs, and how it had been broadcast all across the litter box. Wait, was my Octo? I asked. How did you learn to use it? And how did the videos get sent across the universe? I knew you were up to something, but I couldn't find that thing. Ogre, there is no time for irrelevant explanations. While Klawde and I were talking, Barks had disappeared into a bush in the corner of the yard. Now he was backing out of it, tugging hard on something with his jaws. A moment later, a small spaceship emerged from the leaves. There had been a UFO in my yard this whole time. Listen to me, Ogre, Klawde said. I have mere moments left to live. Klawde, you're not serious, I said, suddenly panicked. You're exaggerating, right? Like the way you talk about boiling the blood of your enemies? Do not mourn for me. A warrior is courageous, even when facing certain death, Klawde said. Klawde, we can do some... Be quiet, Ogre. I am making my final speech, Klawde yelled. There is only one thing I have ever felt truly sorry for, and it is that I did not say goodbye to you. And so now, goodbye. You are a good friend, Raj Banjari of Earth. Klawde! I cried, but the phone had gone dead. I turned to Barks, who had climbed into his spaceship. His tongue hung out eagerly. I looked him straight in the eye. We both knew what we had to do. Barks, I commanded. Fetch! All right, so that's all we're going to read for today. There's only a little bit of the left book, and we'll finish it off in the next episode. But unfortunately, there's not enough time to finish it for today. So I'll see you guys next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the final episode of Klawde, the Space Dog Cometh. Bye.